Last week, a developer opened a Copilot that they've been using all year and watched a $29 bill turn into nearly $750. Uber burned through its entire 2026 AI coding budget by April, and tokens are actually cheaper than ever, but still, everyone's bills exploded. The meter on tokens was activated this week in public for everybody.
Welcome to Human in the Loop, a weekly podcast where two builders cut through the noise of AI hype cycle and talk about what actually matters. I am Oscar Galo, an AI engineer entrepreneur, and I live in the intersection of engineering and businesses.
I'm Matt Wozniak, serial builder and relentless executor. I come from the lens of what works and what doesn't. So let's get into it this week with our segment, Signal or Noise.
Let's start with Trump's frontier model executive order. So on June 2, 2026, the White House signed an executive order titled Promoting Advanced Artificial Intelligence Innovation and Security. And it creates a voluntary path for AI developers to give the federal government access to cover frontier models up to 30 days before any public or partner release. The director of the NSA decides which models qualify through a classified benchmarking process that scores a model advanced cyber capabilities. And well, the order explicitly says that it does not create a mandatory license or precedent requirements. So within days, OpenAI told CNBC that they could comply, and its head of countries confirmed at XSW London. So I have mixed feelings about this. And I'm going to get very libertarian on my points of view. So I'm sorry about it, but when a government passes any bill and they say that that is not mandatory, okay, it means that eventually it will be mandatory. Like we all know that. They never pass a law just so we can, I don't know, help or whatever. No, never. Like when every single government in the world, when they pass a law and they say first, this is not mandatory, it will be mandatory eventually. So yeah, I don't know, I hate the idea. I fully hate the idea. And especially the NSA. Like, come on. Like, the NSA is literally one of the most corrupt agencies where they are like checking on your computer and being and spying on everybody like so many times, like to the point that they got so many lawsuits because of like, I mean, what is the name of this guy that is in Russia right now?
Edward Snowden.
Snowden is in Russia because of these people, like the reality is like, I will never, ever trust them with anything. And beside the giving more power to the powerful in charge sounds like a horrible idea to me. My second point about this is that because I know that eventually they will enforce it, they will eventually be on the way of launching anything, really. And on that process, they will make the releasing process slower in a historic moment where every model is trying to release faster. We went from years to launch a new version to half a year. Now I think we're getting every 3 months, we get a state-of-the-art model. Like literally every 2-3 months, like we get a new version, be it Google, be OpenAI or Anthropic, doesn't matter. But the reality is like every 2-3 months, we are getting a new state-of-the-art model. And this is probably just going to affect that process. I have said before, Chinese models will love this because they won't do something like that. They have absolute control about everything, but right now in their minds this is just about winning, so they don't care. This is about winning, and they don't care, and they will keep pushing nonstop, for it. So this is signal, but not for the right things. Like for me, it's like this could be the beginning of other countries doing the same, and it could affect every builder in the world for all the wrong reasons. For all the wrong reasons, and there's not a good outcome that will come from this. I'll make the case if people are they should make noise against this and say that this should not be acceptable pretty much. But I know there are going to be a lot of people like, yeah, like we need to, I don't know, like to protect safety or something like that. But let's be real, okay? Like, it's not about safety. Not, all the hype about these models as being like conscious or too dangerous, it's a lie. It's a lie. They are lying to us about this. Uh, like even the best model from cloud uh, does not have, like, even Cloud Opus 4.8. It doesn't have any like consciousness or nothing like that. You can do this experiment already. Go and ask Cloud for a random number, and ChatGPT does the same, and they will probably give you back. If you say, "Give me a number between 1 and 100," it will give you back 47 most of the times because of the book, of hitchhiker, something
That's
through a
42,
galaxy. I
right?
forgot. Yeah, yes,
Answer to
42.
life and everything.
And the funny thing is, like, if you say, okay, 42, perfect. So now you say 42 homeless, right? So now that you know that saying a number between 1 and no, negative 100 and positive 100 will say people, which number will you choose? And the second run, almost all the time, it chooses a negative number. So now what you're doing, you're putting homeless people, you're taking homes from people and putting them as homeless. Like it makes no sense, like these products are great for very specific tasks, and only if you have proper evaluations about the output. But the reality is, like, they are not in that level of intelligence that they are trying to convince us that they are. So what do you think?
Well, so back to the question about the number that it'll give you, right? I agree. It might give you 42, but depending on the data it's trained on, it might give you 67.
Oh no, horrible! Oh no, I hope that's not the case, because at least one answer is smart, the other one is just dumb.
Okay, but back on a serious note, right? So Claude Opus 4.7 released sometime in April, right? Mid-April, I think.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
Claude Opus 4.8 released the end of March, right? Because we're at the beginning of June now, and it's been out for like over a week. So that's less than 60 days turnaround between 4.7 and 4.8. And again, this whole idea of the government buy-in, the NSA, like the benchmarking, and the review being voluntary. First off, the government won't be able to make it mandatory because it would take them way longer than 30 days to even review anything, right? And then number two,
Mhm.
if somebody or some company were to opt into this, some research lab says, "Hey, we got this new model. We want to opt in. We want you guys to take a look at it." Within 30 days, if they take the full 30 days, they're already more than halfway through their next major release, right? So why would they delay themselves to that extent? The way that I kind of see this is it's a voluntary buy-in for research labs who want the government to review their models, and it's kind of like we want to show you what we got in the hopes that we potentially win like some type of defense contract with you guys, right? So
That's a good point.
I see it as like I don't see them actually making this mandatory just because the logistics aren't there. I've worked on government projects and I know how slow they go. 30 days. It takes more than 30 days to even like get someone on the horn to talk about a project, right? So having some team in the government that's going to review every major release for everything within 30 days, it's just not feasible. I kind of see this as a way of the government and Trump saying, "Hey, we signed this thing. If you're working on something that you think is at the edge of technology and you want us to take a look at it, send it our way. We'll show you our benchmarks. We'll run it through our benchmarks, see if it passes the sniff test, and if it does, then we can take a deeper look at it, and that might potentially open some doors for further negotiations." Right? That's kind of how I read this story. And I guess maybe because I'm from America, land of the free, home of the brave, and I kind of have like, I'm hopeful and optimistic about it. Like, of course, like the fact that this is even a thing, like it sets a precedent that, a future president or even the current administration could just turn around and say, hey, now it is mandatory. Now everybody has to show it through us. If you release anything, you could potentially go to prison, right? Without releasing it through us. But I'm hoping that's not the case, and I'm gonna be optimistic and hopeful in this scenario, and just think, hey, maybe this is a way for the people who are really on the cutting edge of this new technology to get eyes from the government on what they're working on, and potentially, build the next like awesome thing that the NSA or the Department of War is going to use. Right. So that's kind of how I see it. But also, it's even if they do give the government access to this. I read somewhere in like, I didn't read the actual like document, the actual contract or anything, but I do remember saying that they are allowed to negotiate with the government who else they're allowed to release this to, right? So it's not just the government. There are going to be other trusted partners that are allowed to look at this in tandem with the government. Right. So I don't know who those trusted partners are, who decides who the trusted partners are, or anything like that. But I think that's also worth paying attention to. So it might not just be the Department of War. It might not just be the NSA. It might be current like cybersecurity titans, right?
I think that will be probably the best approach because we know, let's be real, we know there's nobody inside the government to be able to benchmark this in any way. We know, right? Like, look, this is not to insult anybody in the US government, okay? I think everybody knows that I love America, and if I could, I would be back there without hesitation, Uh, but Europe is not doing better, you know what I mean? Like the European Union is doing like a lot of horrible things about this, like control and all these horrible like laws, being paranoid about things that probably will never happen, right? Their best business being Mistral, nobody cares. Like nobody uses them. Like it's you know what I mean? Like like there's no risk there. Um, and they are pretty much useless too on the general idea that they even have the knowledge to regulate these things because they don't. They are a bunch of boomers with no information, no brain, and no capacity of giving any good output of this, right? But there are people who do. There are people who actually understand this technology, and from my point of view, that will probably be like the best thing. Get somebody involved that knows what they're doing. Ask them, ask them to the job, right? Like, hey, can you assess if this is going to work or not? This is too dangerous or something. I mean, the whole idea of dangerous is just marketing again. But just let them do the job, and everything will be fine. You can make like if I'm making like against a case against that is that, well, at the same time you're going to leave that decision power into the hands of a few people, right? Or a few businesses. But at the same time, it's better to have a few businesses involved than just the government. So yeah, that would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, competition's typically always a good thing.
Yeah.
And bringing up your point, people in the older generations, obviously, they're typically less technically literate, right? I remember when I went to old community college, I helped teach a class for computer literacy, and it was mostly like older people, like people from you know the boomer generation, and we were one of the toughest things to do was to teach them like the difference between clicking and double clicking. That's like it was like a crazy foreign concept, and like it was like a difficult concept that for us it's just like innate, right? And like we just understand like the difference between a click and a double click and a click and drag, a click and hold, like all that stuff.
Hmm.
So it's funny the fact that there's not many young people in politics. There's not many young people elected to Congress, Senate, definitely not the presidency. I don't think we've ever had a very young president since maybe JFK. I think might have been the youngest. I don't know. I could be wrong. but yeah, it is kind of hilarious, the idea that the government or somebody in it is going to have some type of benchmark. And not only that, the fact that we've talked before about how benchmarks can easily be gamed and circumvented. Like if you build a model that'll its main goal is to beat the benchmark, you can do that, and it might not be worth much else. So benchmarks are a facade for the most part. I mean, it's okay, but I've never thought it was like a very strong way to, score how a model works outside of actually using it is my opinion. But it's hard to test every model through actual usage. So
Mhm.
so next story. This one's fun. GitHub Copilot flipped to token-based billing. And this is a huge deal. So what happened? Last week, every GitHub Copilot plan moved to usage-based billing. Premium request units are gone, replaced by GitHub AI credits that drain based on token consumption at each model's published API rate. Base prices are held, Pro at $10, Business at $19, Enterprise at $39, and code completion stay free. But developers flooded Reddit and X, reporting bills jumping 10 times, 50 times, or more, with one claiming that a $29 month would become nearly $750. TechCrunch ran the backlash under the headline, "What a joke." So we've talked about this for as long as we've had the podcast, right? And I know a lot of colleagues and other engineers that they swore up and down, like, I won't switch to Claude. I got GitHub. Like, I can do so much on one premium request. Like, it can run for hours. And I always thought, like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, yeah, if you prompt it the right way, it can run for hours. But, and this is a related story. The bill comes due one day or another. The chickens will come home to roost. And I did mention this many times to many people. And this is not just a solo dev problem, because last week, later in the week after this GitHub Copilot story, the Copilot story ran on June 1st. And as of June 5th, TechCrunch ran another story called "The Token Bill Comes Due," reporting that Uber blew through its entire 2026 AI coding budget by April. 4 months into the year, gone. They spent it all. The same root causes the Copilot tantrum. Flat rate intuition meets a usage-based meter. And when agents reread context, retry, check their own work, per developer token usage climbs faster than per token price falls. And this is something like I've even talked about with people outside the podcast, right? Like there's almost like this conspiracy theory that models purposely bloat the context that they send and receive. And people just got used to it happening. Like you can see it happen. Like you send a request, if you're not like extremely explicit with your prompt, it'll just say, here, let me just read the entire code base. Here, let me read all the documentation. Here, let me reach out to like Confluence and read all the documentation there. And you're just asking like a simple question and it's sending everything it can find. So it's just blowing through tokens like immediately. So this is a big deal for a lot of people. And I think this is absolutely signal, especially if you're using GitHub Copilot. Because like I said, I pointed this out. I was paying the $20 GitHub Copilot, and I was able to go into the usage stats and see that I was using hundreds and hundreds of dollars per month in tokens and paying $20. And now even with Claude, I'm doing like we're paying the $200 a month, and I'm using a lot more than that in tokens. And I'm going to have to figure out what to do when, and I'm sure this is a when and not an if, Anthropic goes to usage-based billing as well, like forced usage-based billing. Going to be a problem. And I think a lot of people outside of just individual developers, especially these enterprise companies, as shown by the Uber problem, they're going to have a problem. And like we've talked before, a lot of these companies, they still do yearly financial planning cycles. And, we've said before that it's going to have to shrink. Your feedback loop on financial planning is going to have to shrink in this new world. What do you think?
Yeah, this is very interesting news because again, probably some people, if they have listened to a few of our podcasts, they think that these guys are so annoying. They talk so much about how it's unsustainable for business to offer this, but they keep doing it. And this makes perfect sense because when you think about it, right? GitHub, they don't have any foundational model, none. And this is the reason why they need to use external models that are great at coding, because their models are not. Another thing is like, I mean, they were winning in the beginning. Like, it was probably the best coding. It was not an agent really. It was like an autocomplete, you know. But it was pretty decent, right? And the reality is like they lost completely the match against Anthropic and OpenAI, and I'm not sure why. Like, having all this data, all this training, some people will say that they actually suck because they have all that training data for horrible code, right? So that's why they're really bad.
True.
Like, the opposite, and make it worse, you know. That's a great point, you know.
Trading data on what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. A lot of data, what not to do. But it was very clear to me since the beginning that Windsurf, Copilot, Cursor, they were not sustainable. We knew that. And of course, Anthropic and ChatGPT, well, OpenAI, they can do this all day. They can keep just like subsidizing their whole industry because they have the models. They own them, right? So for them, it's just like, okay, whatever, you know. I mean, they still are spending more money than they have, but they have the main technology, while clearly Cursor, Windsurf, Copilot, they don't. Like, I will make the case that even anti-gravity is in a way better position, because the reality is like anti-gravity, they can always give more usage of Gemini, right? So of course they're in a way better position than these people. But one of the interesting things that you say is about the token usage, and we are getting in this level where, look how intelligent my model is. It's like, yeah, but it takes 15 minutes to do something, and it consumes like 1,000,000 tokens on that process. You know, like we define this metric here before, which is like a token per intelligence, right? And this is something that we need to think about it. Like, Gemini 3.5 Flash, there's nothing Flash about it. It consumes like crazy. Like, it's insane, you know? It is smart? Yeah, sure. It is Flash? Hell no. You know, remove that Flash from the title. Like, we're talking about, like, you'd use so much tokens, like, it's just nonsense, pure nonsense, you know? So yeah, you know, like, we don't want to be those type of people that they are like, we told you, but we kind of did, you know. We told you, you know. And here's the bill. Here's the billing, right? Like, here's the billing now, and us, just our internal team, right? We know we use thousands of dollars per month with our $200 subscription. We know that. That's a fact. We were raised on see the numbers, and we talk about this. We're probably running around 15,000 per month. Okay, so we have a plan B for this, of course, because we cannot just, if tomorrow they decide that now we are on price per token, we cannot keep this running. We have a little bit of our ideas about it, you know, so we're going to figure it out for sure. But this is what every business is doing. This is why Cursor trained their own model, right, based on the Chinese model, because the reality is like they know they cannot offer that level of inference at the price that there's right now. They will go bankrupt easily. So they needed their own model, a very specialized one. It's not like, if you try to use this model for anything else, like writing or whatever, it's horrible, you know. But for code, it's very easy in this Composer 2.5. We already talked about this before. But yeah, it's obvious for me. This was not sustainable, and we're going to keep seeing this type of changes, especially with businesses that they don't have foundational models.
Yep. And it's I was thinking about it. I had so many thoughts just now. Um, so like Flash, is it called Flash because it uses so many tokens in a flash? Is it a flash because when you open the billing screen, it's like a flashbang goes off and you go blind by how big the number is? Like, there's a lot of things that we
Yeah,
could say.
they need to change the name to Flashbang because for sure that's what it is,
Yeah, and then there was something else, right? Like the code quality, right? And I the code quality, but also the predictability, right? Like everyone's fretting right now, and the fact that what is it, GitHub Copilot now? They went usage billing, and we know it's coming, right? Like everyone's going to go this direction. I don't see it staying the way that it is now, and I'm sure a lot of people are starting to be scared because a lot of these companies, they just let go so many employees, right? They fired so many people. They said AI is doing great. Our people are 100x, and like even now their bills are crazy. And if it goes usage billing, like the option is they continue using AI and go bankrupt, or they hire everyone back and their release cycles extend back to what they were before. So there's questions that got to be answered, and like you said, we're answering them ourselves, and we've got plans for the future. And for our clients, we've been working with them and telling them, and just like we said on the podcast, we see this as being the direction things are going. And these are our professional opinions. Between us, we've got probably over 30 something years in the field, right? Like we've
Mm-hmm.
seen trends come and go. We've seen this, and whether or not this is here to stay, I'd like to think it is, but in what capacity? That's the question. Is it going to be like there's this whole idea of token economics now, right? And it's going to be huge
Mm-hmm.
in the future. I think it's going to be very important. And though you said something that made me think of this, right? Like I've been taking my son is young and he's at the age now where he likes going to arcades, even though he's not very good at any of the games. He loves going to arcades and just throwing the balls at the clowns, or throw there's any game that's got a ball in it, he wants to take it and throw it. Whether he wins or loses, he doesn't care. But me, I'm super competitive, and I go around to all these different games, and I'm already thinking about token economics, right? But not through like AI tokens. I'm thinking token economics at this stupid arcade that we go to. I found the game where you spend the least and can get the most tickets. So like my wife's like, "What are you doing? Like just play to have fun." And I'm like, "No, I want to like it's fun for me to like get the most tickets per dollar, right?" Like as stupid it is, even though the tickets are worthless, you got to get like 15,000 tickets to get like a bubble machine. Like it's so dumb. But like I don't know, it was making me think like, yeah, token economics is going to be a thing, right? Like we're going to have like you got CFOs that are planning things, and like we've got Henri doing like our operations at Valley Seed, and he's the one keeping track of all the money we're spending, all the money we would be spending if we were doing usage-based tokens, and he's the one that's like
Mm-hmm.
been raising the flag on this stuff. And like this story shows, they could just overnight, now we're usage based billing. And if you're dependent on your AI workflows as they stand right now, you're screwed. Plain and simple.
And this is one of the funny things. Uh, this was clear. One day it was normal. The next day everything changed. And as you can imagine, this change who gets access to these technologies, right?
Yep.
Because look, I don't care that much. But I know it's going to sound very mean, okay? But I don't care if India cannot get tokens because they are too expensive. You know what I mean? I don't like that's the reality. Uh but I do care about small businesses that they were able to get some intelligence. Small medium-sized businesses they were able to get some intelligence. Now they won't be able to get it. But because let's be real, okay? It's not like Accenture will stop spending money on it. Okay. They will reduce their spending, yes, just like Uber did, right? Because they already spend all the tokens. But they won't stop spending. But these changes of pricing can be enough actually for small medium-sized businesses to completely stop using
Yep.
this level of intelligence. And I feel that those are the ones that are going to be more affected. and that's what I'm really worried about, because in a lot of ways, those businesses are the ones holding the economy together, and the impact can be strong, especially if we get so integrated that then, well, it can crash later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's jump into news number 3, and this is completely related to the one that we were talking already. Which is Microsoft and Google crash the AI coding party. So pretty much at Build, which is an event, right? Microsoft launched a MAI-Code-1-Flash, which is their first in-house coding model. Again, this is a response from what they just did about the tokens being too expensive, right? They know they need their own coding model. So plus MIA Thinking One, which is a more capable model, which is a reasoning model pretty much, And well, they pitch both as like inference ultra efficient and wire the coding model into GitHub Copilot and Visual Studio. And we can see that this is a clear move to lean off OpenAI and Anthropic, right? Because the developer costs are very high. But at the same time, Google use in IO to position itself as a cheap option for a $100 a month AI developer tier. Uh, Even as Sundar Pichai, well, how do you say that name? The CEO, the CEO admitted on Hard Fork that Google is a bit behind on agentic coding. So yeah, like the target for both is very obvious. They want to take a piece of the pie of cloud code. That's really what they want. And even OpenAI it's they say that they are not behind anymore. I have read a lot of great comments about ChatGPT 5.5 in Codex. We'll need to test that out. But it's clear, and I just make this case on the number 2, which is that the news number 2, which is that these people cannot compete without their own models. Cursor understood this before Microsoft. How insane is that? Microsoft is a massive business. How they cannot imagine that they cannot compete without their own model? Like, it's insane. It took them so long. So, so yeah, MA Code 1. It's pretty much the response from Microsoft to be able to compete with Composer 2.5 from Cursor, and I'm sure it won't be as great as Opus, okay, or 5.5. But that's not the goal. The goal is pricing. They want to reduce pricing to be able to compete on pricing. So I haven't checked the benchmarks, but I hope these are better than the Flash version of 3.5 that is not Flash at all. And I really hope, really hope they are good models and they make them open source. I know they won't, because that's how they are lately. They went full evil. But I would like these models to be open source so we can have some balance, in the market. But yeah, what do you think about it?
So, I mean, it's awesome that they're working on their own internal model, their own answer to this usage-based billing catastrophe, which is what it is. I mean, it's not a catastrophe for the business, but it's a catastrophe for their users. But the fact that they even openly say we're a bit behind, right? I feel like they're being generous to themselves, which is fine. Nobody wants to go out and say, "Hey, we got this new thing, but it sucks." Like, it's a horrible marketing strategy. So to say, "Hey, we've been working on this thing, but it's a bit behind," like, that's cool. But being good enough, in my opinion, that's the whole fight, right? Like, if he just told you, the CEO is saying, "Hey, we got it, but we're a bit behind," like, it gives me no confidence, right, in their product. Because like, I use Claude every day. A lot of our clients, they use Claude. We've gotten them into the Claude ecosystem. A lot of my friends and colleagues, they use Claude. Even if they use GitHub Copilot, like, I'm of the mindset that it needs to be good, right? Like, I don't ship half-assed. I don't ship good enough. You know what I mean? If I'm on the team and you post a PR and you want me to review it, people don't ask me to review it because they hate when I review it. They hate when I look at code. And it's because nowadays, even if you're using AI, if you run AI, you want it to meet some goal, it meets the goal, you see it meets the goal, you say, okay, let's ship it. I make a PR. They say, hey, Matt, can you take a look at this? I'll take a look at it. I got skills that will review your code, run it, check it, like run all the tests, make sure it works. But I myself actually sit there and still look through the code. Call me an old person, like I don't know. I sit there and look through it. I leave 15 comments on a PR. I say, hey, why'd you do it like this? Hey, why is this here? Is this really the best design pattern? Like this doesn't make sense to me, blah, blah, blah. And if I get on a call with some of these devs, right? I get on a call and I'm like, hey, so what is this? Why did you build it like this? They're like, I don't know. I don't know. That's how my agent built it that way. My agent made the decision to build it that way. And this brings up like a good point, right? There's like this new concept of, we used to have tech debt, but now I think we have some type of like cognitive debt, right? Like people are building these projects. They're building entire repositories. They're building entire, software repos, right? And they don't know how they work. They don't know why they work. They don't know why anything was built the way it was, right? So if one day, like we're looking at right now, things go usage-based billing and these companies start getting rid of these AI agentic coding sessions, we're going to be left with a bunch of devs who don't know how the code works and they don't know where to look. And
yeah,
I mean, that's kind of why I look through code the way that I do, especially if I'm on your team. It's something that was kind of ingrained in me. In one of the best engineering managers I had, like he would, we used to do code reviews in person in front of the team on like a big projector. You plug your laptop in, you go through all the code you made in front of the whole team. Everybody asks you questions. You're being grilled, and it instilled in me a lot of good practices. I think, like, just because someone's asking you something like, hey, how does this work? Or why did you choose to do it this way? They're not saying it's wrong. They just want you to justify why you did it. And if you can't, that's a problem, in my opinion. Even if you're using agents to build your code, even if you think you got the best prompt in the world, you should still know how it works under the hood, I think.
that's a great point. Let me introduce you to two terms. No idea if they exist. But one is like, now we have agentic technical debt, pretty
Yeah.
much, which is that we have agents creating technical debt for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's horrendous sometimes. And the second term, I will call it boomer reviewing, which is actually reading the code when you're
Yeah, boomer. Give me
uh-huh.
a BR instead of a PR. I like that, boomer reviewing. But no, I've literally had people say like, hey, it works, can we just ship this? And I'm like, no, I'm literally going to reject this because I don't ship bad. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but I'm saying it has to be at least efficient. It has to make sense, and you have to at least like put in some effort, right? Don't just throw in a prompt and send me a PR.
I mean, one good question is like, yeah, it works. Under what circumstances,
Yep.
right?
What are the edge cases?
Because if this works for you, will it work for 1 million users? How many people you have in your system? What about latency? What about, like, there's a million things, right, that you can consider, and the idea is that good enough, okay, like it works, probably is good for an MVP, right? It's okay because it's an MVP, right? But once we're talking about advanced stuff, systems that they have a lot of users, they have been running for years, well, that's a different story. We know that. Okay,
I'd
so
say
let's jump into news number 4, which is, well, that one is for you.
so. ChatGPT has crossed 1 billion monthly users. That's a crazy amount of people. So what happened? Per Sensor Tower estimates reported that the week of June 2nd, ChatGPT's app passed 1 billion monthly active users. The fastest any app has hit that mark. The number is a third-party estimate. It's not audited by OpenAI's internal numbers. It's not OpenAI's disclosure. This is, again, just a third-party estimate. And it counts app users, not web, not API. So it might actually be higher. So the quieter stat is the same report. Claude sat around 56 million monthly app users, which grew about 640% year over year against ChatGPT's 62%. And that is interesting because this is the actual app. This is like when you said your wife is using ChatGPT for recipes, right? I'm assuming she's using the app. When I
Yeah.
use ChatGPT to, say, what should I do this weekend? Like, what is there going on? Are there any cool events next week? That's using the app. I do have the Claude app on my phone. I have Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT. Gemini probably hasn't been updated in about 4 months because I've literally never opened it. I open Claude once in a while, but I do go back and forth between the app. But the important thing is, right, this is just app users on the Google Play Store, on the Apple Store. This doesn't count people who install Claude CLI, use it for code. It doesn't include people using the API billing usage, which is what a lot of enterprise users are using for both of these. This is just your app on your phone. Then that's a billion users, and that's a lot of users still. But I'd be willing to bet it's maybe even double. If you include the API, you include the CLI, even web-based usage, right? I don't think that's tracked on here because this is
Web is not
exclusively the
tracked.
application. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd be willing to bet it's a lot more, but just the fact they got 1 billion people downloading the app, that's huge. I think it's huge. It doesn't really, it's not going to change your day-to-day life. So in the long term, it's kind of noise, but I do think it's very interesting. I do think it's a great milestone. 1 billion monthly users is not a lot of people have gotten to that point. So definitely worth knowing, I guess.
Yeah, for me it's noise, and I'm going to give a very specific reason, and is that OpenAI is really bad with money. They're really bad with money. When they launched the Sora application, I remember thinking, this is the dumbest idea I have seen so far in my life. I have seen a lot of dumb ideas, and I created a lot of dumb ideas too. Okay, I am at fault in a lot of these things. But the reality is that they're really bad making money, and they focus on weird numbers that, while they're amazing, they don't make them more money. Something so simple. OpenAI has pushed the usage of ChatGPT a lot in India. Let's be real. They probably don't have even 10,000 paid users there. Like, they have a lot of users, yeah, but paid users? Hell no. Like, that's not a thing. And as somebody that worked for a lot of years building mobile applications, and I sorry, like I understand like paid markets fairly decently because of how mobile applications works. And one thing that in general we were doing is just blocking every content that don't have the money to pay for the service, because it makes zero sense to provide the application to users with no money to use the application, right? And it doesn't make any sense, because even if you give them like a free trial, there will be some resources that they won't pay for. That's reality. They will use it for 2 weeks, then they will cancel, then they will create a new email, and they will just go on nonstop, doing something crazy like that. So I'm sure that if you remove like countries like India, Pakistan, a lot of these places, the amount of users is probably not that different from Anthropic. That's my thinking, behind. Is it impressive that they have the infrastructure to manage 1 billion users? Hell, yeah, of course. Like, Anthropic cannot make cloud be available 24/7. Like, they have literally one of the worst uptimes in the world. Literally, like one of the worst. And we have GitHub competing there, which is horrible too. Okay, but it's clear to me that the engineering team is great, and what they can do and the computing that they have is great, but the focus feels completely off to me. Like, this is noise because it feels that they are just trying to make this number bigger. So when they IPO, they say, look, we have more users than anybody in the world. It's like, yeah, but are you making more money? Are you actually making more money from this? Or is this just like uh, pure noise, right? And this is why I think they're trying right now to put ads inside ChatGPT, because they know that a lot of those emerging economies, or however they call them, they won't pay for it. They won't pay for
Yeah,
this. So they
makes
are
sense.
expecting the ads to pay for this, but still, advertisement in poor countries pay very little because they don't have the money to buy the things neither, right? So it's like a full circle. It's complicated. I don't know. I think this is pretty much noise.
I totally agree. And so you raise a few good points that I do want to touch on. So I've also worked on mobile apps. I've worked on mobile games, which to your point, 98% of mobile app and mobile game, especially users, are totally free, refuse to spend $1. They'll sit there, watch ads all day. But a lot of these companies, they make 90+% of their money from the top 1% of the spenders. So they focus on the whales, basically, for mobile games at least. And for your story about you give them a 2-week free trial, they'll just do the trial, end it, make a new account, do it again. It's 100% true. Like, when I was a kid,
Mhm.
I didn't have money to play World of Warcraft, and neither did my friend because we were just kids. We didn't have jobs or anything. And we would over and over and over and over. We must have done it 100 times. We would make a new account, get the free trial, play it till the end. Trial's over, we make a new account, play it through the end. Just together, we played WoW for probably over a year, just doing free trials over and over and over, and never paid a cent. But we also never had like an account reach, end game. We never got past like the first city, but like, we didn't care. We were happy doing that. We were totally content doing that. Um, so that's true. That's absolutely a valid concern. And as for the Claude and OpenAI, I almost feel like, because we've talked about this several times, right? Claude's uptime is horrendous. OpenAI's agents aren't that great compared to Claude. It almost feels like they're naturally solving different problems, and there's almost like a logical merger in the future, right? Like Claude agents or Claude models on OpenAI infrastructure that can handle the load, right? And I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, right, for the end users. But like I said, it almost feels like they're solving different problems. Like OpenAI doesn't really have an uptime problem,
Mhm.
and Claude obviously does. But Claude is basically winning, like on the benchmarks and the usage metrics. Like
The
their
money.
models are, yeah, and the money. They're making the money. Now they're making the money. But like,
Mhm.
it's been a race to the bottom almost for both OpenAI and Claude, because they've been losing money hand over fist, and it's almost like who can make enough to absorb the other one first is what it seems like the direction they're going. So I'm not making any predictions now, but I have been pondering on it. Like, it does make sense. One of them will either buy the other one out. They'll have a merger. There'll be some type of negotiation. That's just kind of the direction I see things going. Not this month, not this year, but at some point, unless Anthropic can really like get their infrastructure like settled, then maybe not.
No,
Yeah, those are some
I
good
think,
points
yeah, I think they're years behind on infrastructure.
for
They
sure.
won't be able to recover to this point because everybody's trying to build their data
Yeah,
centers. So I don't think they will be able to. Yeah. And this is why they try to use Microsoft actually as their main provider, but Microsoft sucks. Anybody that use Microsoft,
yeah,
Azure, and whatever, they know that their response time is really slow. Actually, okay. So let's go to the fifth one and last news for Signal or Noise. So we are going back to Anthropic. So Anthropic calls for a global pulse on frontier AI. So on June 4, 2026, the Anthropic Institute published When AI Builds Itself, a report by Marina Favaro. That sounds very Portuguese, and Jack Clark. Uh, the argument the argument behind this is frontier models are nearing recursive self-improvement the point where an AI can design and build its own successor by writing its own code. Anthropic say the world should have the option to slow or temporarily pause the frontier development, so alignment, research, and society can keep up. The catch is the one every pause hits. Anthropic says that it will only stop if the other frontier labs, of course, right, in the US and China, verifiable, and in some way somebody can check, they will stop at the same time. The number underneath the warning is the part that builders should read twice. As on May 2026, more than 80% of the code merged into Anthropic's own code base was written by Cloud. But Clark says that it's 100% possible that within 2 years we have this. And I will call this noise. Okay. This is my personal opinion completely. Okay. But let me explain. First of all, this reminds me about the OPEP. Okay. The OPEP is like this. A lot of countries that they are the biggest producers of oil in the world. Okay. And they have an agreement, okay, of not putting too much oil when the economy is doing bad or good because they want the prices to continue to do this. Can you guess how many times an agreement not to overproduce has worked? 0. Exactly. What they do is behind, they say, yeah, of course, no, we are completely not doing that. And then they just pump the whole thing, and the market gets flooded. Literally every single time that they try to do that, every single time, like they are like, no, you're right, we should not do that. The prices are high right now, but it's like good for our economies, blah blah blah. And what happens? Money, brother, right? Like it's like, no, we're not going to be here sitting while our enemies are probably, pumping more oil than us. So hell no, right? And they keep, and we can see just by the amount of barrels created, because they say that they are not, but on the market they are there, right? And it's like it's so dumb. Like it never work. It will never work actually, because everybody will look for their own interest. It just makes sense, And I think it's completely a good defensible opinion that the only worry that you should have is about your country. Okay, that you should worry only about your country doing great, about your country being in front of technology, being like on everything, right? Education, whatever, because that's your job. Okay, that's your job as a person. You want to cheer for your country. Okay, and this won't work. This is so dumb. Like, of course it won't work, But I'll say this, okay? Besides that, the agreement being completely nonsensical to every level, I will make the case that we know that most of the code at Anthropic is mostly made by their own models. We know that. And I will say that most of the code in our systems too are made by Anthropic models. Okay, everybody that uses cloud, they know that's the case. But let's be real. The code a lot of times is horrible, low quality. A lot of times we need to run, well, first the agent through the creation of the code. Then we need to create a second agent, which is just to refactor and fix all the weird stuff that the other model is doing. And a lot of times it works better when you use an external one that is not the same one as, because Cloud is like, oh, this code looks amazing. When you ask for a code review, like, this is greatly done. And it's like, it's not. What are you talking about? Like, look at this. You should not do that. And it's like, oh yeah, you're correct. Sorry for not looking at it.
You're totally right.
Yeah, like it's just like so, like it's like, I know I created this code, right? It has my type of writing, so I will say that it's the best thing ever, right? And then after that, you need to have a third step, which is usually the code review, right? The automatic code review. And the reality is that it's annoying because you cannot just trust to push this to production ever. Okay, never. And we know that just on the code base of Cloud Code when it got released. Okay, it's horrible. Like, does Cloud Code works? Yeah, but actually it works. It's actually worse than the other CLIs that we have available. When you use the same model, okay, if you use Opus 4.8 on a P agent, it does better than Cloud Code 100% of the times. There's not a single instance actually where Cloud Code does better than a P agent. Okay, and you have several agents like that for coding that they do way better. And I'll make the case that the reason for that is because Cloud Code is 500,000 lines of code. Okay, you should not need 500,000 lines. The verbosity of the models, it's horrible. Okay, and the fact that Anthropic put this paper that says like, oh, like we have created I don't know how many millions of lines of code, and engineers have created hundreds of millions of lines of code. Like that's not something to strive for. I already talk about this. This like taking your phone, holding, opening the camera and just holding the button and take like 1,000 pictures and say like, oh, look how great of a photographer I am. No, you are not. You're delusional. This is kind of where I feel. Like, I'm not saying that you cannot self-improve because we already have agents that they self-improve. If you use Hermes agents, for example, they have a self-improvement process where they will write their own skills and then they will make them better over the process when they get better results, right? So we already have self-improvement, not of the model, right? But of the process of the harness, right? So this is dumb. This is a dumb take. This is, again, they're trying to overhype because even if they could do it better, like how many layers could it go before it creates so much horrible code that it won't be able to fix it anymore? We know that that happens easily.
Yep.
Like we know that, right? So this could be the same thing. That it will try to self fix everything, right? And create something better. And in that process, it will create something worse. 100%. I think that's going to be the case. So what do you think?
I mean, it's supposed to be like a feel good story, right? Like for the doomerisms people, they're like, oh, we're building Skynet, like AI is going to take over the world. They read this story and they're like, hey, like this is going the right direction. Like we need to put a pause to this. But like in reality, this isn't a pause button. This is an arms treaty, right? And like every other arms treaty throughout history, it all hinges on the word verifiably, right? Like there's no real verifiable way to make sure that your competitor isn't making progress while you pause, right? So like the idea that even in the treaty it says like, oh, we need everywhere, US, China, like everybody needs to pause. That's not going to work. It's never worked. Never ever worked, and it never will. It's a feel good story, and at the end of the day it's fluff. It's totally noise, and it's never going to happen. They're never going to hit this pause button. And if they do, if you hit the pause button, your competitor didn't. Even if they proved that they hit the pause button, they didn't. They're making progress still. 100%. So if you ever hit the pause button, you're the one falling behind, not your competitor. So no one will ever do it. No one will ever do it. Totally noise. Okay, yeah, so that wraps up. Oh, you got something?
No.
Oh, okay. So that wraps up Signal or Noise. And now this week we're bringing back No Jargon Required. And I hope everybody can hear me well because I did get a microphone. Some people were saying it was tough to hear. There's a lot of background noise. So I went out, I got a microphone. So hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully it's not too loud. Okay, so no jargon required. No jargon required. Just as a recap, we take technical terms and we try to break them down in a way that anybody, even non-technical people, can understand them. Because in the software and especially the AI and just the tech world in general, there's a lot of verbiage. There's a lot of jargon. So we tried to explain things in layman's terms, for lack of a better word. So our first concept for this week's No Jargon Required is very topical. It is tokens and why your AI bill went usage-based. What does it mean? So as we already discussed last week, GitHub Copilot plan moved to usage-based billing across the board. You're charged by tokens instead of a flat fee. So what is a token? So when you send a prompt to an AI, you send a long message. That message could be a lot of words, it can be a lot of text, it can be a lot of numbers, it can be whatever you send it. Basically, each segment of that sentence is a token. It's about, roughly 4 characters. A character is just A, B, C, D. It's just a one singular piece of text. Every 3 or 4 chunks it up. That's a token. That's an input token if you're feeding it to the AI. So there's the difference here between what's an input token, what's an output token. An input token is basically your prompt. Whatever prompt you feed it, it's a series of tokens. So the word, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. That's a big one in English because it has all the letters of the alphabet. That token or that prompt is 26 characters plus spaces. So maybe roughly 40 characters. If we go by the metric that a token is about 4 characters, that's about 10 input tokens. And this is just a rough estimate, right? So 40 character prompt, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog with spaces, 26 characters plus spaces, roughly 40 characters, right? Space is also a character. So you chunk that up, about 4 letters is a token, 10 tokens input. An output token is everything that your AI writes back to you in your text, in your conversation, but also all the documents it generates, all the code it generates, everything. And it's the same metric, right? Every few characters is a token. So when you fire off a prompt, right, and you say, hey, I'm working in this code base. I want to make this change. I want to add a new feature. And it's like, all right, let me get a feel for your repo. Let me feel what you're doing. Let me see what's going on. And you see, it's like thinking, it says, oh, I'm flibbertigibbing. I'm dilly dallying. It's really racking up tokens, right? So you see it goes like right off the bat, 400, 600, 1,700 tokens, like within a fraction of a second. It's because it's ingesting all the text in your repository, your documents, your XML files, your YAML files, your Java code, Python code, whatever you're using. It's taking all of it, wrapping it up, breaking it down into tokens every 3 or 4 characters and sending it across the interweb, across the internet to wherever it's hosted. Each one of those is money now. Each one of those has a dollar value assigned to it, as opposed to if you were a monthly billing cost, $29 a month, buffet, all you can eat, all you can send, all you can receive. But now it's not a buffet. It is per pound. It is per character, per token, both input and output. So here's the trap. The price per token has fallen hard. It's gone down about 280-fold in the past 2 years for the same quality input output. But you're not buying one answer anymore. An AI agent rereads your entire conversation every step. It calls tools. It does retries if it messes something up. If it doesn't have access to a tool, it fails writing to a document, retries the process. Now you're paying twice for that same process. And then it checks its own work. So one request can fire dozens of model calls. Here's the trap that's wrecking budgets right now. The price per token has fallen hard, more than 280-fold in the last 2 years for the same quality output. But you're not buying one answer anymore. An AI agent rereads your entire conversation on every step. It calls tools. It checks its own work. If it has to retry something, you're paying twice now for the same process. One request can fire dozens of model calls. Per developer token rose about 18.6 times in 9 months. Cheaper tokens are far more tokens equals a bigger bill. So you think you're saving money by using Haiku instead of Opus, or you're using Sonnet instead of, Opus. Yeah, you're using a less expensive model, but you're using 10 or 100 times more tokens, and that adds up, right? So now, like I said earlier in the episode, there's going to be a whole new financial math in the equation for these companies. It's going to be, token economics. I don't know what they're going to call it in the big leagues, but I think that's what we're going to start calling. I like that term, token economics. So when a vendor quotes you a per token price, that number is almost meaningless on its own because, okay, yeah, it's how much, it's like a fraction of a penny per token, but how many tokens does it take to get tasks done, right? Like we need to start having benchmarks like how many tokens to write a controller class, how many tokens to generate a PowerPoint, like how many tokens to, write a document. That's going to be meaningful in these conversations now that things are going towards usage based. So the decision framework, I guess, for this is tokens are important now. You need to know what tokens are. You need to know how much tokens cost, and you also need to know how many tokens are required to get your tasks done that are relevant to your work, right? So if you need a dashboard, it's going to show tokens per task. It's going to show tokens per feature. This is basically telemetry, right? You need metrics, you need numbers because it's not just a flat fee anymore. It's per usage, and you need to make sure you're spending your money wisely. You need to make sure you're spending your tokens wisely. So I could even see this go in the direction of different, like everyone's a 100x developer now, but everyone's starting at a different starting point. So your senior engineers might get a higher token allowance than your junior engineers, right? Or your staff engineers, your director level engineers, like depending on their work and their expected outputs, they're going to need a different amount of tokens, and they're going to have a certain level of token efficiency at this point if you want to save money. If you want to burn money, then let them keep going free, but it's going to get expensive. So you invest in some type of dashboard, some type of telemetry if you're going to continue down this usage-based path, right? You need to know where your tokens are going. You need to know who's costing money, who's generating money. If you have some type of, your provider has that and it's an extra upcharge, like it might be worth it, so you can see where things are going. So that might be something you want to buy, but we typically build that stuff ourselves, and that's depending on your budget. So that would be the next one, build. If you have the budget to build something like this yourself, develop the telemetry, then definitely build it, because this is going to be more important than ever. And typically we have a wait option for these types of decision frameworks, but for this one, you can't wait. There's no waiting on this. You had to have this done last month. And we do have this in place. That's why we know our number, like 15,000 a month roughly is what we've been using. But if a vendor comes to you saying like, hey, the usage token, like it's crazy, so you should switch with us, you gotta ignore them if they can't give you a per token price and they can't tell you a realistic estimate for a tokens per task. Yeah. So it's an important thing. And if you're in a decision maker stance right now, you need to get up to speed quickly so that you can hit the ground running in these conversations, because they're going to start Monday morning if they haven't been going already. What do you think?
That's a great point. Some people will say that tokens are kind of like the kilowatt hour of the new world, but I will say that it's not that. It's calories. Okay.
Yeah.
Because for me, they're like calories because, like, if you think about it, like you need, I don't know, for example, 2,000 calories to be able to do a specific exercise, right? Of 1 hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever, right? It's the same. It's the same for an LLM. It needs those calories to be able to do the job, in a lot of ways. That's how I see it. Maybe because I'm fat, right? So of course I'm thinking about calories. But it's just one of those things that, like, it makes a lot of sense for me, and I will make the case for different, like, things here, which is the token usage dashboards that we usually get from OpenAI and Anthropic. They're horrible products. They don't give you the full insight. That's a reality. And I feel like it's on purpose. You don't freak out that much. I feel like they obscure some of the data behind, And there's a whole market that we have here. For example, Polar. Polar is built on top of Stripe, okay? Which is the billing, right? And what Polar does is because, well, the beginning when startups they were putting AI, some of them went into bankruptcy because of the billing. Literally, like they were thinking, oh yeah, our users are going to use like, I don't know, 20,000 tokens max, right? So this is the pricing that we're putting on our applications, and we should be okay. Wrong all the way, right? Like they couldn't be more wrong. They ended up being in debt. They ended up selling stock just to be able to pay for this, So Polar was founded on that premise that they knew this is happening, right? So when you put Polar on top of your Stripe account, right, what it does is like every request is pretty much getting the data about how many tokens are being used per user, right? And it will keep track of all the tokens, and it will tell you, which users are probably abusing the service, which users are probably not, and it's pretty much the whole token economics or tokenomics thing behind, right? But just in a product that you can use, because we know that most products now they are AI oriented or AI native in a lot of ways, right? And you need those statistics to be able to know if you're making money or losing money, because you probably don't know. That's the reality, right? And if you're making money, which users are giving you the most money, right? And which users are giving you the less, so you can make some fixing in there, and in that same way, this is how, for example, Higgs fields, this website to create videos works. They give you a specific credit. Those credits are related to tokens, right? So every time you create a new video, you get less credits. But the reality is like they're directly connected to the amount of tokens that you are putting in output and output. It's not just random. So yeah, like this is a very interesting concept. And I will say this is how I know that LLMs will never be Skynet. The whole idea is stupid, because how token works is that, well, you explained it already, but pretty much an LLM is always reading everything. Okay, like the whole phrase that you say, every phrase is sent back every single time. Every single time. It's not just the last thing, it's everything else in that process. This is why you can see your context starting from nothing and then going to infinite. This is why 1 million context windows are completely useless. They don't do anything actually. Because they just explode. Because the more text you have, if you have a phrase, every word is connected to the one behind, to every single letter behind that, to every single token, right? So you have trillions, literally, of connections, and it's just so dumb. It's so inefficient. Like, so when they say to us that, oh, there's going to be able to fix itself and build some, no, it won't happen, ever. I'm not saying other technologies won't be able to. Probably that will be the case, that other technologies built on top, or they use some combinations of technologies. It will happen. So yeah, this is a very interesting concept. Okay, let's jump into concept number 2, which is evils and benchmarks. Okay, and this is something that we had a conversation a little bit before in this episode, which is like why the leaderboards are lying to you. Okay, well, this whole idea about this executive task for the NSA, about classifying, creating some type of benchmarks where they can know if something is like too powerful, too dangerous, it's pretty much nonsensical, and just for context, okay, we knew that the difference between Gemini 3.5, Opus, and ChatGPT 5.5 was not even close. We knew because we use these models, right? But on the benchmark, Gemini even comes on top on some case. And you're like, how is this even possible? Like Gemini fails on tool calls, on basic ones.
Yeah.
Okay, like it's insane. Okay, like so we know that those benchmarks are useless. So let me explain. Okay, In plain English, a benchmark is a standardized test for an AI model. Okay, it's nothing else, nothing more. It's a fixed sets of questions, and it gives you a score. So an eval is a broader practice of measuring, okay, whether the model is good at a specific job that you're looking for. Okay, so public benchmarks are the SIT of AI. A leaderboard ranks who scored the highest, pretty much. So here's why like the leaderboards lies. The first one is called contamination. Okay, so the test questions leak into the training data, meaning that the more times the benchmark is being done, those questions become part of the training data of the LLMs. Okay, so the model now has the answers in their own data training. Okay, so the second one is saturation. So the top models all score about 88% on the most popular tests. So the gaps at the top are statistically like noise. All of them looks like they're in the same level, but they are not. And then the third one is like there's a judge bias. Okay, when an AI grades the answers, they always favors their own family of models. This is well known. This is why we say before that it's always better that if you create the code with Claude, make the reviewer be an OpenAI model, always, or the other way around, depending on your taste, right? And this happens always, right? And then, the fourth is like the real world gap. So enterprise deployment shows roughly a 37% drop from lab score to production performance. This is not new for us. We have know this and measured this before. So the takeaway for a leader is like a benchmark score is a marketing number until you test the model on that you work on and see how good it is. Okay. The only evaluation that matters is the one built for your task, your data, and your definition of a correct answer. So pretty much the evals is just the word evaluation short, right? And it's just you saying this is correct, this is not correct. That's what it is. It's just checking the output and saying this is a correct response, this is an incorrect response. And based on that, you're going to start recording these evaluations and see if you're doing better or worse. And in that process, you do several steps, which is a lot of jargon that I'm not going to use, but it's pretty much changing your prompt and changing the tools that you give to your agent to be able to get a better output. And you run again and you check the evaluations and you say, is now from these 20 runs, okay, for example, the first time we got 5 correct and 15 incorrect. Okay, so we're not doing great, right? We're doing so let's change the prompt, let's change the tools, let's change the harness. Let's run again 20 tasks. Okay. Preferably different ones. Don't run the same ones. Okay. And then you will get 10 correct, 20 incorrect. Okay. So now there's a proper process where you're getting better. And the idea is that this is why you have evaluations. So you will do this pretty much nonstop until most of the times you get a positive result, right? You will never get 100% positive result. This is why evaluations exist. This is why structure outputs and a lot of other things exist, because we need to know that when the output is not correct, to run again, do it again. This is like the casino life that we are now, that we need to to pull the lever again and see if it's correct, right? And one case that I want to make about this is that we knew that the terminal benchmark and then SWE benchmark, they were alike. We knew it was alike completely because of cross contamination. And a few weeks ago, this new business came out with this stuff called Deep SWE, which is a new benchmark. And because it is new, and is better designed than SWE, you can really see the difference. And it's brutal. Okay. Gemini 3.5, which is supposed to be in a lot of ways better than Opus 4.7 and even 4.8. They actually scored 35%. 35. They drop from 80 something from the benchmark before to 35. And the funniest thing is a lot of other Chinese models, they went down too instantly because of the cross contamination. And the funniest thing about this, it was that the winning one was OpenAI. It was ChatGPT 5.5. And a lot of people were like, no, you create this benchmark around OpenAI, so they pay you for this. And it's like, no, we actually were very surprised about this. And we went to OpenAI because we were like, what the hell? How you are so great? Like, this makes no sense. So long story short about why that's happening is because looks like ChatGPT 5.5 has better discoverability, and just like the thinking out of the box, it's a little bit better at that. While Cloud, if it doesn't have the training data on the system already, it's really hard to create new things, like think differently, pretty much, which is super weird. You will think that is the opposite. So it pretty much did way better. It did way better, and that's something that I never expected. So in the end, OpenAI was the highest one, but still we're talking about like 50%, right? And nothing crazy, like 88%, right? But you can see that there's a big difference, and that's what we saw, right? We knew that a lot of these models, they were not on the level of Opus or OpenAI, but but the benchmarks were saying otherwise. So if you have questions about this, okay, which is the best model for your case, okay, send an email to us, go to the website, do whatever you need, and we'll be happy to help. I'm not throwing shade, okay, at Google. They're great. There are very specific tasks that are great, but you need to know which are the tasks that are really great for, okay? You need to know. You cannot just like choose one model for everything, then expect to be. So yeah, it's important that you know about evaluations, that you evaluate the outputs of your non-deterministic models, because remember, they are non-deterministic. They won't get you the same result twice, okay? So this is why they are very important. So yeah, I will say that always the decision framework will look like this. You need to invest now. Well, you need to invest yesterday, actually, on this, okay? Not, but you need to invest now, because the reality is that you will need this to know how good your agents are performing. You need to know, because otherwise you are just like walking in a complete empty room. You have no idea what's going on. So you better do the job and implement proper evaluations and check how good you're doing or how bad. That's most of the cases, okay? And then jump into the process of making it better. I will say that, because in these segments we'll usually talk about like invest now, ignore. Please don't ignore this. There's no way. In this case, like there's no way we will tell you that that you need to ignore the evaluations. Please not. You can ignore the leaderboards, the benchmark for sure, because they don't make sense, right? So you can completely forget about that. And well, I will say that there are vendors that they sell you evaluations or platform for evaluations. I will say that don't, because a lot of times your data and your case, it's very specific, and you will get very weird results if you just go with that pre-made solution. That's my thinking. So yeah. So what do you think?
So, I totally agree. You can't sleep on this. You need to be ahead of the curve, and if you're not ahead of the curve, you need to get up to speed quickly. Um, it makes me think the whole time you were talking, I was thinking, right, like these evals, like they're so dumb. Like they're so like narrowly scoped that like, okay, this model did better at this model, but like a lot of it is so abstracted from the average user, especially people who are non-technical. All they see is the end result. They see the number. Okay, ChatGPT got 80%. OpenAI got 88%. Gemini got 37. Like, oh, okay, OpenAI must be better. I don't know. But now with this whole tokenomics thing, right? You even said yourself, like OpenAI did so well because of its thinking out of the box, right? It does really well at thinking, but at what cost, right? At what token cost is it scoring an 88% versus the 37% Gemini's scoring? And is that 37% actually more token efficient than the 88%? And that's what's starting to become more important now. So a score with no cost attached, no token usage attached is a half truth, right? You can score 100%, but use a billion tokens versus getting 37% and using 2,000 tokens, right? The model that wins the benchmark while burning 50 times the tokens, I wouldn't consider it a winner at all at this point. If anything, it's the loser, in this new token efficient world that we're heading towards. So you got to always ask yourself, at what price did this model get this score? But, to build on that, right? We've got clients who've been in the API billing usage model for a while. And, you were talking about these aren't deterministic paths that the models take, right? And that's kind of why we have worked with clients. We've built their own evaluation framework, right, for their specific tasks. And on top of that, we've even built them out an orchestrator, right? There's one that I got in mind. We won't say who, but we built a very deterministic orchestrator, right? And this took months of work. We did very intensive evaluations, and they run automatically. And we did evaluations on all the processes. We figured out which model works best for which process, and we built an orchestrator framework that this plugs into. So the users at this company, they don't need to know what model is best for what. They use our orchestrator that we built, and it naturally uses a deterministic path to figure out, hey, this user is trying to do this task. This task I already know from the evaluations that this model is best for this task, and it only needs these tool usages. So we've been able to cut down their API billing usage by a lot, like a humongous percentage, just by coordinating with us, helping them build out this evaluation framework, and building them the orchestrator on top of it. So, excuse me, like Oscar said, if this is something you're looking into and you don't know where to start, send us an email, podcast@valleyseed.com. And we've been more than happy to have a discussion with you and see what makes sense for you. Because, it goes without saying, most teams are flying blind right now. They've got the premium usage. They're at a set cost every month. And, you ask any engineering leader the cost per merge request or cost per day or per week, they might laugh and say, I got no idea. I don't know. All I know is we're using AI. Everybody's using AI. And, that number is now almost the most important number in your spreadsheet, because it's going to make or break you over the next few months. So you need to start having these discussions now, and a lot of them. And, again, if you don't know where to start, podcast@valleyseed.com. Send us an email. We'd be happy to help you.
Or you will end up like Uber, spending all your tokens, not even half the freaking year, right? Like you went 4 months and then you get nothing else to do, like that's insane.
Yep.
Okay, so let's close the podcast with our unpopular opinions. So unpopular opinions, we pretty much share an opinion that is probably a little bit controversial. This is mostly because we don't want to be this type of people of we told you, but we kind of do, some of the times. So we are going to be those type of people, right? So here's mine, okay? So this is regarding the Trump executive order. I don't think it's about safety, okay? I think it's about distribution. Okay, let me explain what I mean by that. So the government gets 2 months, or 1 month, sorry. And then the laboratories will get this political cover, right? And what happens is that in the end, this can transform into a buyer that they have unlimited budget because it's the government, right? They will keep printing money. While for the rest of us, we get whatever gets shipped after the people of clearances and all that are done. Okay. So every frontier release from here forward has a government waiting room, which is insane. And the labs they walk in smiling. Okay. Because the reality is that a lot of these Silicon Valley people, and I will call myself a tech bro. I don't care. Okay. I'm a tech bro and I love tech. I'm very bro-ish. So, but these people hate competition. They do hate competition. And they will tell you competition is for losers. And every time they can get the government involved to regulate something so they can win, and there can only be 2-3 businesses in the whole market, they will do it. They will do it happily. Okay. Because again, regulations never help the businesses. They help the people who are in power all the way in the top, and they want to keep their positions of power in top. Because all these regulations pretty much they kill not only innovation but competition. And of course, what these labs are expecting is like, look at our models, right? They are great. They are amazing. Look at what we can do. Do you want a contract? Right? It's like giving them drugs, You get some free drugs first, and then you get addicted and you're hooked for life, This is pretty much why they're very happy to do so. Because they are thinking, oh, we don't want the peasants there paying $20 per month, We want this government contract of trillions of dollars, probably, right? And especially if we're talking military, ooh, right? Top notch. Like I have said a million times, if you really want to make money, don't do software, do war. Like do something related to war, You will make a lot of money on weapons, And if you want to suffer, well, do some Palantir or something horrible like that, It will make you more money. That's the reality,
Just throw all
So
morals aside if you want to make money.
yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the case, But yeah, that's my popular opinion. I know a lot of people believe that this is about regulation. I believe it's the opposite. It's about killing the competition.
I think for some reason I just thought of this when you were talking just now. And if the government, right, or some team at the government gets this early access to all these models, these frontier models, right? I don't know to what extent they get access, but I was just thinking, right, if you are like working on a team and every month you got the newest, best, top of the line, edge of the frontier models walking in your door, models or anything, and you're the one who gets to evaluate them, at what point do you just like say, oh, we don't want contracts with any of you, but we're going to keep looking at them and keep using what you have to build our own, right? Like, whether or not they win a contract or even offer a contract, right? You've got a line of people voluntarily saying, here, look at our stuff, try our secret sauce, check it out. Here's what we got. Here's what we built the last month. And you're sitting there reaping all the rewards. You're benefiting from it. You're gaining more knowledge every time someone walks in the door with a new tool. I mean, I do think it is like a funnel. Like, it's basically a GTM for the government, right? It's a GTM for government contracts, like trying to find the best of models, right? And these people are voluntarily walking in, they're showing you what they got. And you as in the government could be going through these and building their own repository of like, here's what we liked from this one, this model passed our benchmarks here, but they failed here. So let's take this from here, take this tool from that one, and start building our own proprietary model that we get from looking through these other models. So yeah, I agree. It's not about safety. It's never about safety. It's never about what's best for the people. There's always some ulterior motive when it comes to,
Mm-hmm.
government stuff. So I agree. I agree. So here's my unpopular opinion. I'll never be the type of person to say I told you so, even when I did. I'll never say it. But I do want to recap episode 5 when we had our guest Jackson Oaks on. We had a very deep conversation about the topic of subsidized tokens, and there was discussions about how we believe those subsidized tokens were going away and that the bill was coming soon. I will say that was roughly 4 weeks ago, but I won't say that I told you so. What I will say is the Copilot billing meltdown, this is actually the best thing that's happened to engineering leaders this year so far, right? Flat rate AI taught the whole industry to treat tokens like they were nothing. They were fairy dust. They were free. They were never free. And now the meter is visible. And within a year, the teams that win are going to be the ones that measure the cost the way they measure latency. This is a new metric that needs to have been tracked from the beginning. And the best teams have already been tracking this. The people who are leading in their field have already been on top of this from day one, right? So this has always been a metric, whether or not you've been paying attention. And I think the fact that we were going usage billing, it's, like I said, it's the best thing that's happened for the people who are already at the forefront. It's the worst thing that could have ever happened for the people who don't really know what they're doing. And depending on which bucket you're in, if you're in the bucket where it's a bad thing, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you're going to go bankrupt by July. I mean, you might, but
hopefully.
Yeah. But not necessarily, right? The tantrum on X is just the bill arriving for 2 years of pretending that it never was going to happen, right? Like it's like you eat candy every day, you drink soda every day, and you think I'll be fine, and then one day your doctor tells you, hey, you got to stop.
Diabetes.
Yeah, you got diabetes. So, like, again, my unpopular opinion is this is the best thing in the world for some people, and it's the worst thing that could have ever happened for others. And you need to take a real hard and honest look at where you're at and what this means for you. And you need to figure out whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And you got to figure it out, by tomorrow morning when you get in your meeting with your, your board members, with your CFO. They're going to be mad at you. You gotta figure out where you're at, and you got to figure out the answers to these hard questions pronto. And again, like, if you need to bring in someone who has experience, you need to bring in some type of SME, some professor of tokenomics. Here we are. We've been helping people. We've been ahead of this. And again, we got the receipts. We've been talking about this for as long as this podcast has existed almost. So I'm not going to say that I told you so, but go watch episode 5.
And look, this is the reason why we are doing this podcast, because we see directly, right, talking with clients, and we have a lot of friends in the industry directly, right, working with this, and we know how things are changing and where they are going. We're not just talking out of our imagination or anything like that, like we have the data to back it up. And this is why a lot of time when we say something, then a few episodes later, it ended up being exactly as we say it, like this is not like magic or anything. It's just having the right data and the right understanding of how things are working, right? And this is something I was trying not to laugh, because we need to register the name tokens diabetes. Like token diabetes is literally when you abuse the token so much that then it comes due and you get completely blasted, with hundreds of thousands of dollars. I will happily register that.
Well, you also call tokens like not kilowatt hour. You said they're calories because you're burning tokens, just like you burn calories, right? And you want to have a calorie deficit if you want to lose weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you got to get on top of this. You got to get on top of this right now.
Agree. Okay, well, perfect. That's all the podcast. This is the podcast. My name is Oscar Gallo.
I'm Matt Wozniak. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.
Bye.